Hello, fellow curious people. I'm Nick, and this is the process video for my latest character illustration, the Beetroot Farmer. This character was created with the purpose of being an NPC in a fantasy RPG setting, like someone your player characters may encounter during their D&D or Pathfinder campaign. The main idea for the illustration revolves around the moment that I am trying to capture with the pose I used in the end. That moment happens when you pass by her as she makes her way into town to sell her harvest at the market. She sees you, the player character, and then she stops to make brief conversation, playfully balancing from one foot to the other while tossing a beetroot up in the air and catching it with one hand. She is, of course, gonna be covered in dirt since she woke up at dawn to get all the harvesting done before the market opened its stalls. She's also tired, but still smiles. What you're seeing on the screen at the moment is what I refer to as the clean sketch stage. That is as clean as my lines get during the whole process, since I end up painting over the areas that I need as I go along. What I am focusing on the most here is getting a better feel for proportions and how the costume parts fit together, including the props. I do this by lowering the opacity of the initial loose gesture sketch and doing the cleaner lines on a layer on top of it. And now, the trouble begins. You'll see me start on the flat colors of the figure and then move on to applying the shadows way too quickly. This definitely wasn't looking right to me at the time, and it frustrated me quite a bit. The colors were too close in value and saturation all around, and that definitely wasn't helping the piece. So, I did what I had to do, and I took a break from it. I had dinner, went out for a walk, and came back to it with fresh eyes. That did the trick. I took the time then to actually choose a color scheme and map it out in the color wheel so everything was more cohesive. I'll insert a picture of that color palette on screen if you're curious as to what I was working with. I then used a grayscale layer to check the local value of each object to ensure enough separation between the elements that way. I definitely needed to keep the stripes on the overalls, so I narrowed it down to 2 colors instead of, I believe was 5 different colors at the start, or 4, for a simpler read that still maintains the fun and right aspect of the original idea. After that, I just applied the main shadows with a soft brush on a multiply layer and started the overpainting process where I clean up and add more detail and material information to each part of the character. I like to start with the face and then sort of radiate out from there. I find that once I paint the face on a character, everything really starts to take shape, even if the rest of the figure isn't finished yet, especially when the previous steps have built up a good enough foundation for me to paint the final details onto. Once the rendering was up to the level of polish I wanted, particularly in the focal areas, I did one last step. I adjusted the values slightly for a better overall read by darkening only the core shadows a slight bit, and then added a touch of saturation around the terminators for some vibrancy. And that's all I have to talk about this piece. I definitely feel like the big takeaway for me is to never rush the flat color stage, and never go right into the light and shadows without being fully convinced by the color choices I've made. Taking that step with caution and picking a color scheme with intention really helped this time around. I didn't really have too much color correction or complete redos or repaints of different areas of the image once I had the decision made and I was satisfied with it. That definitely sped up the process and made it more fun and smooth to go along with. So I'll be keeping that in mind moving forward on my own work, and maybe you should too. Sometimes I feel like I tend to rush things and expect it to turn out exactly as I would have hoped right away. I always end up regretting it though and having to change a lot of things along the way, and it really slows me down. Sometimes it's also very frustrating. So taking the time and actually enjoying what I'm picking and choosing on each step before going into the next is something I really need to remind myself every time I do one of these paintings. Anyway, thank you for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings while seeing how this character came to life. There is always something new I learn with each piece I work on, and identifying what it was that gave me trouble and how I resolved the issue is something I recommend if you feel like you're stagnating in your art. So, before moving to the next piece after you finish something right away, maybe take a brief look at what you did to get to your end result, failures and successes included, and take that new discovery into your next project. If you would be interested, maybe check out my work following the links in the description. This artwork is also available as a print in my shop at the moment, in case you want to go and check it out and get a copy of it for yourself. Well, until next time, take care.